So as I was saying, avoid, when it comes to the S for surveying, avoid reading in details, avoid highlighting and, going in detail. Reason being that apart from your prescribed textbooks that it will be relevant for your assignment, when you go online and you do research and you pick an article that you think talks about your assignment, please quote or highlight the word think, because at that stage you do not know yet if that article or book will actually be relevant for your assignment. So the survey step is really that step that you want to know, is this textbook, is this article actually relevant for my assignment? Because what will happen is if you don't survey and you start reading and highlighting and making notes immediately, you may find out at the end that it's actually not really covering your topic and you've wasted time reading pages already before realizing actually this is not in my context, it's not relevant in my context, or this is not the topic that I'm focusing on. Right? So that is why you want to survey first. It's fast, it's quick, it's just to really get the bigger picture of that particular article or the textbook, right? So in your notes, surveying is the process where you scan through a document in order to get the big picture, in order to get an understanding of what it's talking about, to see if it's relevant for your assignment, okay? So in this step, what you want to do is you want to focus on the headings, the title. What is the title? You want to maybe look at the introduction and the conclusion. Look at in the body, you want to look at the headings and the subheadings, maybe if there's any highlighted words, you want to look at that. If there's pictures, you look at that, just to really have a big picture of what it's all about. And the reason I say you can also look at the introduction and the conclusion is because when we were looking at the structure of an AC or academic writing, we saw that the introduction is really the summary of what is to follow, and the conclusion is a summary of what has been written. So generally, when you read the introduction of an article or the abstract of an article and the conclusion, you will get a big picture of what that article is all about. Okay. The next step, once you've surveyed, you've seen that this article is actually relevant to my assignment, it's relevant to my upcoming exam, it's relevant for my test, it's relevant for my topic. What you want to do next is to question, right? So the Q in the SQ4R stands for question. So here you want to write the question who, what, when, where, why, and how for each heading. So here you start already to engage with the text. So for example, if the heading of the article says the causes of Revolutionary War, you want to ask what were the causes of Revolutionary War? Now the question makes you to think about what you're going to learn from that article, or what is the purpose of reading that article. It guides your reading, it guides your mind to see what information am I out to get from this specific article or from this specific book. So writing your questions, and sometimes these questions could also be some of the questions from let's say you're reading to answer a specific question or specific questions in an assignment. You could use those questions here to say, okay, these are the questions that I'm looking answers for. And that will guide you to focus your reading and focus your mind and highlight the answers to those questions. So it's very important that when you read, you have specific questions that you want to ask or investigate in that reading, okay? So once you've asked your questions, the next thing you want to do now is start your reading. And now this is where you read deeply. The first reading was just surveying. But this is where you now engage with the text in depth. So yeah, you're not just, glancing through or skimming through the work, but you want to be cautious. You want to ask, now, what are the answers to those questions that I ask? Now, this is where, if your question was, what are the causes of COVID, for example, and you're looking for it in an article. When you find the first cause of COVID, you want to highlight that. And you want to make notes next to it to say one of the causes of COVID is 1, 2, 3. Then you want to go to the next paragraph and so on. Each time you see the answers that you're looking for, you highlight. Now, some people don't like highlighting. Others prefer just making notes. That could also work. If you want to use your bold markers, that could work. If you reading online, you can also highlight, even PDF documents, you can also highlight that. If you're using if you don't want, some people, it disrupts them when there's too many things happening in an article and they prefer to take separate notes. If you want to do that, that is equally fine, right? But this is where you engage. You want to highlight, you want to take notes, you want to underline, you want to italicize words and phrases that answer your questions, right? You also want to hear if, let's say, there's a term that disrupts your reading. Now, there's this important question that students usually ask. Queen, do I need to understand every word in an article that I read? The answer is no. You do not need to understand every word, but you need to understand every word that you think disrupts your understanding of a sentence. You will see that sometimes when you write a sentence, there's a word that really, without it, you still get the full meaning of what that sentence or paragraph is all about. But sometimes misunderstanding a word can mislead you in terms of the meaning or can make you not understand a specific meaning. So that is where you need to pick up your dictionary, right? To research the meaning of that word. What does this mean? So that you're able to really understand, what it means. All right. So this is deep reading, right? After you have read, the next thing is you want to actually respond. So with the previous step, you highlighting, you finding answers to those questions. This step, you start responding. And by responding, this is where you respond orally or you want to write it on paper. So you have your questions that you were looking answers for. So with the respond, if you're responding orally, you may want to use your phone and record yourself. Let's say if the first question was define COVID, now you want to close the article and actually respond. COVID is 1, 2, 3, and 4. What were the causes of COVID? The causes of COVID included 1, 2, 3, and 4. Or if you were looking at the Revolutionary War, causes of the Revolutionary War, here you want to respond. The first cause of the Revolutionary War was 1, 2, 3, and 4. This happened because of 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this is where you can look at yourself in the mirror, or you can call your younger brother or your friend and bore them a little bit, and kind of respond. It's important that you speak out loud or you write. Now, the reason this step is very important is because it helps you to remember. Now, there's the brain theory that says that the more you write, the more you practice, the more you remember. So what happens in the brain is each time we study, there's neurons that are formed, and these neurons forms what we call dendrites. And I'm not walking you through a scientific class here. I'm just trying to make you understand what happens in your brain each time you repeat something or each time you write something. So there's neurons that produce dendrites, and these dendrites form bond or relationships with each other. So this is the dendrites that helps you to remember information. Now, if I were to say a definition for the first time, there's 80% probability that you forget in 2 hours, you forget what I had said. But if I were to repeat it again the next day and the next day, probability are you remember 70%. And if you keep practicing it and repeating it yourself again and again, then 10% chances are you will not forget. So that is why practice is very and extremely important in your studies to help you remember. And when you read, you want to understand and you want to remember what you understand. You don't want to read passively to forget the next day or to forget when it's time to write your exams. So this step is very important in helping you to remember, right? So what you want to do is use your phone and respond. Or if you want to write it down on paper, now you want to actually, without looking at the article, you want to start responding to those questions that you wanted to investigate from the beginning. Okay, any questions so far? All right, let's continue. Just give me one moment. I think somebody's trying to join the session. Okay, I did allow the person in. Welcome, Cassandra. All right. So once you've responded, the next step is to record. So yeah, you want to now start recording in a way that you can revise during the exams. So recording is different for different people. So people use different steps, right? But this is where you want to record either in the form of notes, mind maps, summaries, cue cards. This is basically the step where you do summaries of your reading so that during exams, during tests, you don't have to read the entire article again. You can just go through your notes and read that, right? So with record, you can use your summary notes. So this is a condensed form of what you have read, so you can in your reading identify the key terms, the concepts, and pay attention to those, or just make summaries of the question or answers to the questions that you seek to investigate. Alternatively, or adding to the recording, you can make, or to the summary notes, sorry, you can make flashcards. Now, the beauty with flashcards is that it's just really cues to remind you of the information that you read. So these are usually like words or numbers, just to really remind you of, what you've read. It's portable, so you can be in the taxi or in the bus or in your office, and you have a spare time, and you just take that out, and those short points or words or formulas that you have made kind of remind you. Then in your mind you start reciting or recalling, the information, explaining it to yourself, or responding again just to remind you. So this step, you want to record what you have read in the form of summary, mind maps, tables, cue cards, however that you prefer. After recording, the last stage with our reading is reviewing. So this is the stage that you will do till the end, till you write those exams, till you write that assignment or that test. So here you want to just keep going through your notes again and again, again and again. Now, what is specific about this step is to understand that sometimes it will require you to go back to the initial article. You may be going through some past questions or going through something that the lecturer said, or studying with your peers, and something is mentioned and you're not sure about. The reviewing stage actually allows you to go back to the first stage, which is, or the third stage, which is the reading. Go back to your article, look at what you highlighted, read the article again, perhaps to see if you missed something or to get new information, right? So that is the thing with reviewing. So this is going back through all of the steps again and again until you write that exam. Now we have come to the end of the SQ4R. Now, let's start with the surveying. What does the surveying stage require you to do? Let me just ask the question first. We might have volunteer before I pick someone to respond. I think it's better that you volunteer to explain it yourself. So we have just gone through the reading steps, and we chose the reading strategy called the SQ4R that represent every step that you have to take in your reading. S referring to survey, Q question, first R read, second R respond, third R, I think I'm missing one. The first R is read, the second R is record, no, respond. The third R is record, and the last R is review. There, I got it. All right, so what I want you to do is tell me, what does the survey stage require you to do? Yes, Matumba?
I probably joined late and I may have missed some of the content you shared, but I think what I got at is that it avoids you from reading the entire article and not to highlight everything that you come across, and to see if that information that you're reading is relevant to your assignment or whatever that you're doing at the time.
Excellent.
And basically to avoid skimming through the entire article.
Excellent, excellent, Matumba. Thank you very much. So just as Matumba has mentioned, surveying, what you should note is you do not have to read through the entire text in detail and, highlighting and making notes. Yes, Karabo, it's just about skimming and scanning through it. So here you want to focus on the introduction, the conclusion, the headings and subheadings, and the title. Just as Matumba has mentioned, just to really get an understanding of what the article is all about and to see if it's relevant for your assignment. Excellent, Karabo and Matumba. Thank you. The second stage question, what do we do? What does the second stage question require us to do? Yes, Matumba?
You engage with the content, the article, when they ask you questions as to who, what, when, where, and how.
Excellent. Excellent, Matumba. I really appreciate that. I can see you were indeed taking your notes, be it, with a pen or in your mind. Some people are really brilliant with good memory. So thank you so much. Just as Matumba has mentioned, and Karabo, thank you again, also has mentioned the same. Karabo and Matumba, thank you. That is indeed what you do. So asking the questions who, why, how, about the article. And also, this is also where you can also use the past question papers or the assignment question and break it into different questions that you want to find out. Let's say you're discussing the causes and consequences of, technology in higher education. So the first question you could ask in the article is, what is technology? What is its history? How did it emerge from in higher education? What are the causes of technology? What are the consequences? What are the positive consequences? What are the negative consequences? So you want to break that question into different parts that will respond to your assignment question, right? And these will answer the who, the why, the what, and the how. So you want to actually write that down so that you read with purpose. This is extremely important. And this is the step that makes, reading a novel different from reading for academic writing. When you read fiction and you read for academic writing, usually when you read fiction, you're more worried about the storyline, is it exciting, the interest, and you don't read to question, right? You're not looking for specific information. But with academic writing, you're looking for specific information, usually needed for the exam, for the test, or to test your understanding. So question is very important. So what are you looking for in that article? Excellent. The next step, the first R, read. What do we do there? All right. So the question, Cassandra and Cholofelo, is, what does the read, the third stage of our reading strategy, require us to do? So Karabo says reading requires deep reading and engaging with the text. Excellent. In doing this, what should we do when we involve in this step? What is important that we do while reading deeply and when we engage with the text? What is important that we do? Excellent, Cassandra. We need to highlight important terms. Everything that is important, we need to start highlighting them. What else?
You try to find answers to the questions.
Excellent. Excellent. Remember, you did ask in the previous stage, you asked questions. So this is where you now highlight, as Cassandra has rightfully said, this is where you now highlight those answers, right? If you ask A, what is the answer to A? One of the answers to A is this, or the answer to A is this. That we comprehend the text for our understanding and find answers to the question. Excellent, Cholofelo. That is exactly it. You want to read with understanding and highlight those answers that you have been looking for, or take notes of those answers that you have been looking for. Excellent, guys. Well done to all of you. Now, once you've done that, the next stage, what is the next stage? Once you've read, what is the next stage that you have to do? Excellent, responding. Excellent, you want to respond. So writing on paper after having all the answer to the question, that helps you remember the information. Excellent, rightfully said. Yes, you want to respond. Apart from writing to the paper, how else can you respond? And this is preferable to writing because with the next stage, you will write, you will have to write. But what is the best way to respond? That will help your brain remember. All right, Cassandra. So there's two ways when you're responding. There's two ways to respond. Karabo has mentioned one, which is writing down the information. What is the second or other way to respond, which is really the best way to respond to help you remember? There were two ways. All right, mind mapping is the next stage, which is the recording. So you can record through mind mapping. You can record through keywords. So Cholofelo, you can record through keywords. Cassandra, you can record through mind mapping. But responding, really, it's orally. What I want you to focus on this stage is the oral part. This is where you want to speak to yourself. You know, when you're talking to yourself and people are like, is this person crazy? What's going on? You know, and you talking to yourself and you're repeating certain things. This is where you stand in front of that mirror. You take your phone, you open the recorder, and you start responding to those questions, okay? So I want you to focus here on the oral part, responding orally. There's something that happens about information you read when you say it out loud. It's just amazing. It helps your brain to remember. So because the next stage is the record, and the record requires you to actually write down the information in the form of, as Cholofelo has mentioned, keywords, as Cassandra has mentioned, mind mapping. The respond part focus on the oral part. So repeating the information orally and possibly recording yourself so that you can check or re-listen to yourself later to see if you actually answered correctly or not. Focus more on the oral part in the respond, and then in the next part, which is the recording, you can focus more on what Karabo mentioned, writing. Some people don't like to speak or hear themselves. That is why you can also record in writing, but responding orally is better than responding while writing, but the two methods are acceptable, okay? I hope that helps. And I have already come somehow into the next stage, which is the recording. Cassandra's, you said mind mapping. So with the next stage now, after you've responded orally, you can now start writing that down in the forms of keywords, as Cholofelo has mentioned, mind mapping. What other ways can you use to record? Excellent, Karabo. You can also use summary notes. You can also use flashcards. Yes, Cassandra, you can also use bullet points. You can use concept maps. and we will look at different ways to take notes and record your information in more detail. So please look forward to the note-taking, paraphrasing, and summarizing workshop. That is a beautiful workshop that will walk you through different steps of how you can record information during your lectures, how you can record information while you're reading, how you can paraphrase. I'm sure some of you, ask yourself, how do I paraphrase information? How do I summarize information when I read? So there is a workshop that will address note-taking, paraphrasing, and recording in more detail, and will give you more detail about how to make bullet forms, how to do mind maps, concept mapping, note-taking. We will go into more detail about that, and all of that involve the record stage. Excellent, guys. Well done. And of course, our last stage, as Matumba mentioned, is the reread, right? The review. And in this stage, what do we do? What is most important in this stage to note? Excellent, excellent, again and again, right? You need to not stop. You need to keep going to your notes again and again. And most, adding to what Karabo has said, also important, if there is something you do not understand, do not shy from going back to the beginning and doing the deep reading again, right? Excellent, guys. Well done. I can see that you have a clear understanding of how to go about your reading. You have a clear understanding of what you need to do in order to get that necessary information from the text that you are reading. Yes, this will be Cholo Fellow, the recording stage. You summarize all the information and you keep reading it again and again and again until you write that exam, right? So this is just a summary. This slide is just a summary of all we have discussed. But instead of giving you this summary, I prefer we review it together as we have just done. Because again, yourself, you can see that you have an understanding of what is required for you to achieve all these steps. Yes, Karabo, definitely. The read stage, you can always go back to stage number 3, where you have to read in more detail to get perhaps the information that you may have missed. Okay, I will give the break a little bit later. I'll give the comfort break a little bit later, just when we are about an hour gone, then I will give, or halfway gone, then I will give the break. So do not think I will not give you your 5 minutes comfort break. All right. Let's continue. So having looked at how to read, now let's look at how to approach those assignments. Basically, in academic, an assignment is what we cannot avoid, right? You always have assignments, exams, and tests. And that is the way that, the lecturers are able to see that you have actually understood whatever information was presented to you. So an assignment is a task or a piece of work that you are given to do, especially as part of your studies. The most important thing with your assignment is to start early. And I did emphasize this yesterday, especially because when you write, avoid writing as a once-off, except you're in an exam room where you do not really have the opportunity to start all over. But even in an exam, you have an opportunity to review your work. So what I'm saying is writing is a process, right? It's not a once-off thing. So what you want to do with your assignments is give yourself ample time to review that assignment again and again. So you don't want to write maybe your assignment a day before it is due, because what that will do is, let's say it's due tomorrow, and then you write, and you happen to discuss it with a friend or a peer, or you decide, let me consult with Queen and see how I'm doing, if I'm answering the question correctly, how my structure is. And then you realize that actually you're not approaching the question fully. Most often students understand the question, but sometimes what happens is they don't answer the question fully. And we'll look at such complex questions in unpacking question workshop. We will have a workshop on unpacking questions, and there we will look at best ways to really look at those complex questions and make sure that you've answered all the parts of the question, because sometimes a question requires you to do more than one thing. And now you realize maybe you use one reference instead of 3 or 4 references. and it's due tomorrow. You don't have enough time. You may not have enough time to read those articles and add the information that is required. And then you find yourself maybe not having the mark that you had hoped for. That is why it's important that when you have that assignment question, start as early as possible to give yourself enough time to plan, research, write, and revise your work. So you don't have to rush. So you will see that we have plan, we have research, write, and revise, and those are the steps of writing. So we're going to look at these different steps that we need to take in order for us to tackle that assignment in an appropriate manner, right? So the steps involve planning, researching, writing, and reviewing. Okay. The first step, before you even start your assignment, what is important is to understand the assignment task. So that is what is required of that assignment. So before you start, make sure you understand. So to do that, you will have to read the question. Read the assignment question slowly. Do not be in a hurry. Take your time. Read it slowly. And as you read the assignment question, ask yourself, what's the question about? What's the topic? I went through a lot of lectures, did a lot of topics. What is this question? Under which topic does it fall? What does this question mean? What do I have to do in this question? Then what you want to do is answer those questions in your own words. The assignment question is about, the topic is about, the question means that, in this question I have to, so that you are guided and you don't digress in answering that question. So this is very important and will make you to write that assignment and focus on exactly what is required of you. Once you've understood what the question or the assignment task is about, now you want to start analyzing the question. So look at the question, and the first thing is you want to identify the instruction, or what we call task words. By task is, let me write it down. I know sometimes my pronunciation is not the best. As we all know, English is not our first language. There we go, task or instruction words. Now, the first thing you want to look at, a question was posed to me yesterday. And the question was, I asked the question back, what is the task word? Is it asking you to discuss? Is it asking you to evaluate? Is it asking you to analyze? What exactly is it asking you to do? What you do is, if you go on Google and you say task words, right? You can just Google it, just say task words or instruction words. It will give you a list of a lot of them and what is required. So save that and keep that with you and just read through it and get acquainted with what each words require you to do, so that if you happen to find that word in the exam, you know exactly what that task word means and what you need to do in with that task word. If it's an assignment and you have the liberty to Google, just Google what it means before you even start with that assignment. So for example, if the task word says analyze, it means you should examine the main ideas and issues of a topic, look at the arguments for and against, and show the relationships. If it's asking you to describe, it means explain and explore the meaning or main features of something. If it's asking you to discuss, it means examine and analyze key points and possible interpretations, give arguments for and against, and draw a conclusion. If it's asking you to evaluate, it means you should give an opinion supported by evidence on the strengths and weaknesses of something. So if the question says evaluate, it means you have to show the strengths and weaknesses of that thing. And you need to give an opinion about it, and you need to support that opinion with evidence. So once the lecturer says evaluate, they want you to do something specific. They want to see the strengths and weaknesses. They want to see your opinion. supported by evidence. If the lecturer says describe, it means they want an in-depth explanation of something, to explore the meaning of something, and to give the characteristics or the main features of that something. You will see that the tax words already guides you as to what is expected in that specific assignment. Once you've understood what is required of you in that assignment, the next thing is you want to check the topic. So what is it about? Now you ask the questions, what am I analyzing? What am I discussing? What am I describing? What am I illustrating? So the what will answer the topic that you're focusing on. And this is the core, the main term or the main focus of your question. Now, the limiting words is very important because this gives you the scope of how far or how much you should discuss a certain topic. Now, an assignment usually focuses on something specific, and the limit words will guide you to know what that specific thing is. So it can be specific in terms of time, place, or part of a topic. So when the assignment says discuss the advantages and disadvantages of COVID in South Africa. Now, the limit words there is you're discussing the advantages and disadvantages of COVID where? In a specific context, South Africa. So if you start explaining how COVID had many people died in the US or many people died in the world, you know, and a lot of people lost their jobs in maybe Egypt, for example, or Israel, for example. Now, what are you doing? You're not focusing on the limit words because this specific question limited you to a specific place. It said in South Africa. On Tuesday, when we're looking at the causes of poverty in Africa, the limit word was Africa. We're not discussing the causes of poverty in Europe, or in the Americas, or in the world. We're looking at a specific context, which was Africa. So when you have a question, ask yourself, what is the limit? How far should I go? Sometimes it will be the topic. It will say discuss the causes of war. Now, what is that question? What is the limit? It's limiting you to causes only. So we don't want the consequences. We don't want the history. We want only its causes, right? So ask yourself, what is the limit of my question? Once you have these answers, you know the tax word, you know the topic word, you know the limit words or limitation of your question, the next thing you want to do is do research, right? Before you even start your research, what is important is check the marking schedule to see what the marker will be looking for. This will help you to know what to focus. If there isn't a marking schedule, check the assignment question to see if the information is there. Now, with each question, with each assignment, usually the lecturers give you a brief, a tutorial letter, or something about the assignment, what they are looking for. For example, they'll tell you excellent mean you have approached this question in this way. So some kind of a marking guide or a schedule for what they're really looking for. Go through that. You don't want to, at the end, realize, oh, this assignment needed me to focus on, or the marker will be looking for 5 references, but now I have done only 1 references. So usually the marking schedule will tell you exactly what that assignment requires. Check how much your assignment is worth and what percentage of mark. The reason I'm saying this is because your marks will guide you as to how much you need to write. Now, if the question says, list the causes of poverty in Africa, 5 marks. The tax word is list. That means you do not have to explain, isn't it? What are we listing? What is the topic? We're listing, the topic is poverty, right? It's been limited to 5. We're listing only 5. Now, if it says 10 marks, you may want to list and provide an example. If it says 5 marks, you may want to list only. If your essay is an essay of 30, it's mark out of 30. You might want to write, an essay of approximately 2.5 if the word count was not given. If the question is a 60% mark, then you need to dedicate a lot of time on that question because you probably need to write a lot, provide explanations and examples. If it says 2 marks, then it also guides you as to how much you need to write. There's less probability that you will write 3 pages for 2 marks, right? No question will ask you to write 3 pages to get only 2 marks. So the mark allocation usually guides you as to how much is needed in that assignment. Okay. Then the next thing you want to do is you want to then start following the steps. So once you've answered all these questions, you want to start your research. So you want to gather the information that you will need for that specific assignment. So research is something we do all the time, whether it's researching a recipe for dinner, where to go to for holidays. I'm sure most of you are already looking for, we're getting into summer and December is coming. I'm sure a lot of you are researching what they will do for their holidays. Okay, so that's good, looking forward to the holidays. We all need that, isn't it? Research is very important, but there's certain steps that you need to do when you're doing an academic research, right? So once you're clear about what you need to do, so you've unpacked your question, you know what the question requires of you, you need to now start figuring out, what is the information that I need and where can I find this information to answer these questions, right? So research is about looking for the information that you need in order to answer the question that you have. So again, in this step, you need to revise your assignment topic. Check the information you already have. So what do I know about this topic? No student comes in empty-minded about the topic. Most often, you know something about the specific topic. Even before going to lectures, you have an idea. And what the lectures do is either reaffirm that idea or provide new information that can be added onto what you know. It's unlikely that lecturers will walk into a classroom and assume students know nothing. It's very unlikely. Lecturers always assume that students know something about a topic or even more about a topic. Even with my workshops, I do not believe that I'm giving you information that is completely new. Sometimes the workshop is just a reminder of things that you already know, or a reinforcement or a revision of things that you already know. So when you're given a topic, what you want to check is, what do I know about this topic already? Then what you need to do is look for what you do not know yet. Let's say already you have 2 prescribed textbooks, you've read through it, you have that. So it says 5, use 5 resources or sources for this assignment. So you already have 2, now you need 3 more. So it's really checking into what do I have and what do I need? What questions do you have that will help you respond to the assignment? Have you unpacked or unfolded that assignment question as you were doing your reading? Did you do step 2, which is the question? What questions? Because these are some of the cues that you will need, or some of the questions you may need to look for more readings to support your assignment. Then before you continue, what you want to do is try using a mind map to brainstorm the information. Now, some people say mind maps are a waste of time, but what I say is, imagine yourself going to, a friend says, please come to Randburg. We are at the kinky bar, for example, right? Kinky as in Afro hair. We are at the kinky bar, for example, right? And drops the phone. Now, where do you start? Kinky bar, or they say, it's Randburg, it's the kinky bar. You don't have a map, you don't know how to get there, you have no clue on the steps on how to get there. All you do is have that information. So you will get there probably 3 hours after, perhaps because you have to stop and ask, you have to make more calls, you have to. But if that friend gives you a location, and in that location, you can use your GPS to follow exactly the road that will lead you to that place. Now, what that happens is it becomes easier for you to get to that place. So it's the same thing. When you have a mind map, it allows you to structure your work in a more cohesive manner, but also to have a clear indication of where you're going. Now, there's been a lot of instances where students answer questions and realize at the end that all the answers they provided are not really answering the question specifically. But if you had a map, you will be able to clearly see on the map at the end that something is not working here. Something is not right here. What do I need to relook here? So the map really helps you to ensure that first, you answer the question correctly, you have a clear structure, but also it will guide you to see what information you need to research about. Okay. Then the next thing you want to do is develop your research strategy. So decide where to look. So this is academic writing. And with academic writing, not all places are appropriate. Not all sources are appropriate, which will be the next step, because we'll look at how to evaluate information to know that this is an academic source. And a lot of students usually ask, how do I know a source is an academic source? So we will look at that today as well. So in developing your search strategy, you want to depend on the type of information you're looking for. So are you looking for definitions? Are you looking for examples, explanations, statistics, analysis? What are you looking for? So the different things you can get information or the sources from, you have your course material. So first thing, always go to the prescribed textbooks on your tutorial later, because lecturers will always give you a list of sources that you need to use in that specific module. So that should always be your first point of reference. What are the prescribed textbooks? What are the list of textbooks the lecturer gave? Then you also look at the recommended readings. Are the other sources that were provided? So you want to look at your guides and so on. Then you want to also search via your library. If the lecturer said use 3 more academic writing, you want to search in your library. Go to your library, be it physical or you use your online databases at UNISA. If you don't know how to do that, contact the UNISA library and ask them how to check for books on the online or the online databases. These are your journal databases where you can get academic articles. Now, what is good with looking for information in the library or the online databases is because all information you find in these areas or in these sources are academic already, right? But when you Google it, when you go to Google and you type causes of COVID, then there's a blog, somebody is talking about the causes of COVID in their blog. A blog is not an academic source, and that will be rejected in your assignments, right? But if you go to the library, all the textbooks or articles or sources or references in the library are already acceptable. That is why they've been uploaded in your library. Then we have ebooks. You can also access some of the academic books on the ebooks. That's also a good academic source where you can get books or your articles. Printed books, newspapers are also acceptable. Journals are also acceptable. There are recommended websites like your WHO, your UNICEF. These are Statistics SA, so government sites, government organizations. These are also accepted in academic writing. Once you know where to go to look for research, now the thing is if, for example, I'm checking on the library, do I type the full question in there to get the relevant textbook. Now, if you're using Google, you can use Google Scholar. Unfortunately, the thing with Google Scholar is sometimes you realize you have to buy most of the articles there. They're not free. But if you're linked to your library, then you can access those articles through your library. Again, contact your library to see how you can access that. Usually, if you link your Google, there's a way to link your Google Scholar to your library in such a way that if there's an article there that is available in your library, it will let you know, and you can just go to your online library and get that article. If you're Googling on Google, that's a nice one. What you do is you just research on Google and put PDF at the end. Usually the PDF documents are usually academic sources. That's another way that you can get more academic sources. So what are you looking for? Do you just type the full question and put in your Google or in your online library? The answer is no. So you want to use keywords from the assignment topic to generate search results. Don't just type in your assignment question. Expand on the list by thinking of related terms and synonyms. Sometimes you will see that if you research causes of war, maybe you will not have a lot. But if you say the reasons why war occur, now you've changed causes to a synonym, which is reasons for something happening. Maybe you can get more. So that is what this tip is saying. So you want to use synonyms, other words that mean the same thing. And your topic may be described in one way, in more than one way, as I've said. The causes of war, the reasons why war occurs, that's two ways, you know. So same thing when you have a question, is there another way that you can rephrase it, but avoid putting the full question? You can break it into different, sometimes if you say what is something, the what comes with the definition, the characteristics, the causes and consequences, right? And from there, you can then get the causes, which is the focus of your assignment. So also check the limit words. So instead of saying the causes of COVID, use your limit word in South Africa. So you can even put South Africa in quotes. When you want to emphasize anything when you're researching, put your double quotes next to the word. What happens is the articles that will come up will focus on that specific word. That is a good tip as well. Okay. And of course, if you're still confused and you don't know how to go about it, please make use of the librarian. Okay, contact the library. Now, when you take a source, as I've said, if it's on the library, if it's on Google Scholar, if it's physical library as well as online library, these sources are academic sources, you know. But if you get them from Google, then it's important that you use your crap to know if it's crap. Guys, I'm rolling today. I'm rolling. You use your crap to know if it's crap, right? Okay, so what does crap mean? So CRAP, just like the SQ4R, represents the steps that you need to use in order to evaluate if the source that you are using is appropriate for academic writing, right? So the first step is current. The second step is relevant. The third step is authority. Then we have accuracy and we have purpose. Okay, so let's look at these steps. Current. When you take an article, what the first thing you want to do is check, is it up to date? Now, with most academic writing, lecturers don't want you to use sources that are more than 10 years old, right? But however, always consider or check with your assignment if you can go beyond this. If you have to go beyond, double check with your lecturer if it's okay to use any academic source. If you have not double checked, it's advisable to use sources within the last 10 years, preferably 5 years, but sometimes with some topics it's difficult. Then you can use 10 years. However, if you're using an original theory or theorist, then you don't mind the date. So let's say, for example, you're discussing pedagogy of discomfort, right? That is a specific theory that was founded by Bowler. Now you have to use Bowler. Although he wrote this maybe in 1999, hypothetically, I'm not sure. You have to use it because he was the original theorist. He came up with that specific theory. It was his theory. He created it. So you can, in such a case, you can use an outdated source. It's not really outdated because it's the original writer of that specific theories, except that if it's articles, journal articles, and recent theories, please use the most recent articles. So you can, in doing so, you will know how recent it was by looking at when it was published, when it was last updated. Sometimes it was published long ago, but it was recently updated. Then you can also use it. All right. The next question you want to, the next thing you want to check, I think I uploaded the wrong slide because I did edit this and this was taken off. Let me just continue. So the next thing you want to check is, does the information relate to your assignment question? That is it relevant to your assignment question? And again, this will go in line with your reading stage when you check in, when you're surveying to know if it's relevant. But also you want to know, is it the right academic level? Is it for academic purposes, or is it to advertise, or is it to convince the audience? Check if it's to give information. Academic sources are to provide information in specific contexts. Who is the audience? The audience should be academics, right? Did you check other sources before deciding on this information is right? So sometimes tries to check that information, is it does it coincide with other people who are saying the same thing? Is it something that was said in the lecture, just to know if it's relevant? Then check the next thing, check the authority. The authority also helps you to know how to place your reference. We will go through the referencing workshop. There's also a workshop that will focus on referencing. I know I'm overwhelming you. There's a lot of workshop. It's because academic writing requires a lot of different things, you know, to build up your academic writing skills. So when looking at the authority, knowing who wrote it is very important. Their qualifications, are they an expert in the topic? Has the work been approved? And so on. Now, usually academic sources are written by academics. So you will see, when you Google them, you will see they have different other articles. These articles are mostly published in journals, they've written academic books. And then another thing that is good with the authority is you get to see how much that author has written a specific topic. And if that author has authority, that means they're well known. For example, when we talk of social justice, there's people we have to talk about, like Nancy Fraser, Paul Freire, Rawls, you know, and so on. We talk of Marxism, we have to talk of Marxist, we have to talk of Marxism himself, other theories, Aristotle, Socrates, when we talk of justice. So there's certain authors that are quite known in your field. They have authority. When you are referencing such authors, you want to start with their name. So you place emphasis on the author. But if the author has written few things on a specific topic, then you want to reference first, and then you write the name of the author at the end of that information. So that is another thing, that knowing the authority of the author helps as well in your writing. The next thing is you want to check for accuracy. Is the source reliable? Is the information supported by evidence? When you read, how did that author get about their findings? Is it based on their personal feelings? Is it based on the experience, or is it based on data that they collected? Are they biased or unbiased? And that you will be able to determine that on how they carried out the data. Usually with academic sources, the authors have to use specific methods to carry out their data, either number one through secondary or primary data. Secondary data is when the author used other sources, other references as their data collection. Primary sources is when the author used, for example, questionnaires to carry the data, surveys. The author did observations. The author did focus groups, personal narratives, and so on. So academic ways to carry data. That is how you check for the accuracy. The purpose. The next thing in the CRAP and the last thing, which is the P, is the purpose. Why is the information being produced? Is it to entertain, persuade, inform, or sell something? Academic, it needs to inform. The purpose also, when it's academic, it stays neutral. And if it takes an argument or a side, it supports it with clear evidence without being biased. Okay, so once you have researched your information, you need to use the CRAP to ensure that that information is an academic appropriate source for your assignment. Once you've gone through the CRAP, remember to also read that text using critical thinking. Now, critical thinking is not just about, negativity, but it's about questioning what you read, asking yourself, is this information relevant? Why is it relevant? What ideas have been presented? Why? Why did the author think about this? Is there another author that says otherwise? And this will help you, especially with the argumentative essays, will help you to build that your counter argument that we spoke about yesterday. The next thing you want to do is plan. Once you have unpacked your question, you've researched, you want to now start planning how you will answer your question. So you have your articles that you will use. The question asks for 5 articles. You have it. You've understood the question. You have your mind map. Now you need to start planning what you will focus on. Now this is the structure. You want to decide on the structure that you will use for that specific assignment. Right? And this planning will help keep you on track. So you want to make a linear plan. What sections will you include? Is it a conclusion, an introduction, conclusion, body? What would be in the introduction? You list those 4 items we looked at on Tuesday. What is this introductory sentence? You need a thesis. You need a definition. You need thesis. You need outline. What will be the first body paragraph about? You list it. What will be the second body paragraph, third body paragraph? How will you structure your conclusion? So you want to make a clear plan of exactly what you'll be writing in the different sections. Okay. Then once you have your plan, you can now start writing your assignment. Now, what we advise when you want to start writing is write in drafts. As I said, writing is a process. Sometimes we know you have what we call the writer's block, right? Where you've read, but it seems like you can't just start. It's like you don't know where to start. And where do I start? What do I do? You will be guided by your mind map. So start from your mind map. That will guide you to know where to start. And free write, just write. Don't focus on editing. Don't focus on the language. Just focus on following that structure, right? Answering that question, because you will revise the language later. You will fix even the structure later. Just focus on following what you said you would do in your mind map. Write that down, and then you can always come and add and deduct and delete and fix the grammar. That you can do later. So do your first draft, and then when you come back to the second draft, you can see what is missing. Look at your question again. What did I not do in the first writing, which was the free writing? What can I add? Now, let me focus on my referencing. Let me focus on my grammar. Let me focus on my language. So think of your writing as steps. Things you can do, you can finalize maybe in the 5th draft or in the 4th draft and so on. And that will help you to start and write freely. Right? So free writing, as you can see in the slide, is getting as much down as you can without worrying about the wording. So here you don't want to worry about those number of words. If the assignment says 3,000 words, just keep writing. You will come back to it later, and sometimes leaving the introduction to the last stage can be important in the sense that you have your mind map already. Maybe you just want to start typing the courses, going and going, and then you have a clearer picture of what the body is, so you can use that to structure your introduction. It is the first paragraph, but some people prefer to write it later. Right? For example, right now I'm working on my literature review for my PhD. I am not focusing at all on the introduction yet. I am doing the body because I really don't know how much I will write. I have my mind map. I always start with the mind map of what is needed in that literature review. I have my topics, my different topics. I decided to start with the first, second topics. I will do all of that. And once I am done, I have a clear understanding of what my body is, what was written, what my arguments are, what the main focus was, what the outline, what was the first section, second section. That is the information that I would then translate when I write the introduction to my literature review, right? So that also helps. Then you will then come and revise your draft, and revising and revising and revising. You realize that sometimes you get the good draft at draft number 5, number 3, number 4. It will depend on the assignment. It will depend on the scope and so on. Once you've written, what you need to do is take a break from that assignment. This is a very important step for every review, be it reviewing for reading or reviewing for writing. You want to take a step back, take a break, get some distance between yourself and that work. Just give it some time. If you're done, give it like a day where you don't look at that assignment, you think about other things, you watch some movies, go out with friends, talk a little bit, have some fun, something else. Then come back to that assignment before doing your reviewing. The reason we advise this is because sometimes, I don't know if you realize it, but if you can do this, read out loud. Sometimes when you're tired, you read and you realize that what you're reading is not on paper. Maybe you can say the orange, but there's no the orange. Maybe it's an orange, or there's no an, it's just orange. Like your mind just fills in the gap and reads words that are not even there. Someone is agreeing with me. So thank you for agreeing with me. It also makes me feel like I'm not talking to myself. Thank you. So the step, or one thing you can do to prevent this from happening, is to take a step back. When you take a step back from your assignment, what happens is when you come back to it, you come back with a fresh mind. It's like you're seeing this whole new thing. And trust me, at that point, you'll be able to identify mistakes that you could not identify before taking the break because you were tired and you had too much of it. It's also like if you like the kitchen, if you like cooking, you realize that when you cook, sometimes you're not able to eat at that specific time. The smell, the aroma, has already overwhelmed your taste buds, and it's like you don't really get the taste of the food. You have to wait and do other things, maybe watch TV, take a shower, and do other things. Then you only be able to enjoy it later, hours later, or maybe the next day. That's when you really get to enjoy the food. And that is why you see a lot of cooks, or a lot of mothers, they prefer to when someone else is cook so that they can enjoy the meal, or go to the restaurant so they can enjoy the meal, because when you are involved, sometimes you get into that aroma and it's everywhere and you can't really see what's happening. So it's the same concept, when you read, take a break. Trust me, when you come back, you look at it with a fresh mind and you'll be able to identify some of the things you could not. And when you come back and when you're reviewing, these are the questions you have to ask yourself. Very important. Is the structure correct? Is the content correct? But before we get there, have I answered the question? Go back to your question. Check. What did this question require? Look at the marking schedule. The marker will be looking at these things. Have I addressed those things? Look at them one by one. Do not hurry this stage. That's why you have to take a break, come back, do it slowly and take your time. What did the marking guide want? Did I respect A? You tick. Actually have the pen or marker. You tick if you've done it. Then you go, how is the structure? Did I structure it correctly? Is the content correctly answered? And you will see this is what we call high order concerns. You will see that these questions are asked into the order in which you will get the most marks. The most marks always goes to the content. Are you answering the question? Followed by the structure. Is it well structured? Have you included all the relevance parts? For example, if it requires a title page, did you include that? The introduction, the conclusion, the reference list, did you include all of that? Did the assignment read well? Does it read well? Did you acknowledge all the sources? Did you reference appropriately? Is it the Harvard? Is it the APA? Did you reference appropriately? Did you check all the details in terms of, the page numbers? Did you number your pages? Did you check if you have written your name, your student number, all the assignment details? Did you check for your spelling, your grammar? Is it written in a formal language? And Queen is there to help you check all these aspects. So if you need help in checking all these aspects in your reviewing stage, that is where I come in. Come to me, book an appointment, and I will help you through your reviewing stages, right? But these are the questions that will guide you. And please take a snapshot. These are the questions, or you can request for the presentation later. But these are the steps that will really guide you on reviewing your work. All right. Now we have come to the end of how to tackle your assignments. Do you have any questions? We're going to take a 5-minute break before we look at exam and test preparation. Best ways to prepare and answer or to approach exam questions. Any questions? All right, I want you to tell me in the chat, we have 3 minutes before 10:30 so that we can have 10:30 to 10:35, 5 minutes break. In the chat, just write for me. Let's just reflect on the stages. Just let me know what are these stages that you have learned about today. So just list them. What is the first stage, the second stage, the third stage, according to what you remember? You may miss one of them. It was quite a lot of them. You may miss it. It's okay. You don't have to remember all of it. What are the writing stages or the writing step? Or if you cannot remember all of it, what is the most important step to you? Or what did you learn today in your writing stages that you did not know before? Because you have been writing, and I'm sure you do not come without any knowledge about writing steps. What was the most important step to you? Okay. So what was the most important writing step to you? And list the different writing stages. Okay, just listing them. You don't have to explain them. So you can answer this in the chat at your own time. We will take a 5 minutes break. I'm thanking Sal, Zenande, Leseko for joining the participation. We really appreciate what you're saying and sharing what was the most important to you. So thank you very much. Do your research. What is checking the marking schedule? Very important, right? So we saw with the writing stage that what is important before we even start going through these stages, which are the planning, research, and writing and reviewing, is to understand the assignment question, as Karabo mentioned, using the tax words, the topic words, and the limit words. So first you have to unpack your assignment question and know what the question is all about. Then you want to start planning, as Sal mentioned, right? Then you want to make sure you evaluate the information, as Zenande and Lesego mentioned, checking if the sources is valid, if it's credible, making sure it's supported by evidence. That's the process where you use the CRAP, as Matumba mentioned, to evaluate that information. Yes, checking the marking schedule is also very important. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing what stood out the most for you and your understanding of the writing process. Indeed, I can see that you were paying attention, and there's something that you learned or that validated as we went through the writing process. So now let's have a look at the exam to conclude today's session. So the exam is a formal test that you take to show your knowledge or ability in a specific subject. So usually with all academic, or when you enroll for a specific subject, you will have to take an exam either semester for at the end of each semester or at the end of the year, just to see or check your understanding of that specific topic. Okay, but before I go, let me see what Palesa says. The most important step I have learned is understanding of the assignment content and checking of the instruction words, topic words, and limit words. Excellent, excellent, Palesa. I'm glad that stood out for you. All right, so in preparation for your exam, the first thing, get enough sleep. I'm not going to emphasize or go in much detail with this because usually towards exams, I walk you through this, but I realize it's important for me to walk you through this way before so that you know already what to do when that time comes, okay? So be it in preparation for exams, tests, in your writing process in general, it's important, very important that you get enough sleep. Now, I know we're all students, and sometimes, you want to rely on Red Bull and Monster and coffee, just to keep you awake for hours and hours. Now, getting enough sleep is an important process of your learning. You need to sleep. Why is it important? The thing that remembers the most information is the brain, and the brain needs rest. It needs a lot of water, it needs food, but it also needs rest. The more you rest, the more you'll be able to recall information, right? The more you rest, the more you'll be able to really engage more deeply with your work without forgetting. Usually it's advisable to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep, right? So optimize your alertness by getting enough sleep. Don't think you're wasting your time. No, you're not. Once you've read, you need that information to sink in. And for that information to sink in, your brain needs to be at the resting stage. Organize your study space. This is very important. As you read and as you prepare for even your assignments and tests, make sure all the books, all the texts that you will use are in one place. If your library is online, make sure your folders are well organized and everything you'll be using for that assignment is well organized on your computer or on your notepad. So organizing that study space is very important. Study groups. Now, not everybody believes in study groups, but it helps a lot to have study groups because in study groups, it's an effective way to study because you can gain insight from each other. You can also share readings, you can share understanding, and share ideas and encourage each other. And now with COVID, we have learned it doesn't even have to be in a physical space. You can still have your study groups where you meet online. For example, you can call each other at a certain time or text in the group, okay, I'm awake, I'm awake, I'm awake. Okay, guys, let's work. We have 2 hours, let's study. We study, time for questioning, time for discussion. What did we understand? What stood out the most for you? Do we have any questions? We address it. If we can't address it as a group, we ask the lecturer, right? So organizing study groups right from now, even before the exams, will be better because you can't just have study groups before the exam. This is the time to have study groups. Again, you'll be able to explain concepts to each other. Practice on past exam questions. This is a very important stage. It's not about cramming how to answer certain questions because most often the lecturers change the questions or it could be the same question asked in a different way. But because you cram a specific question, then you focus on that and your mind is only on that and you even do not realize that it's the same question. Right? So it's about just seeing ways in which the lecturers ask questions and just revising recurrent topics, okay? Take regular breaks when you study or even when writing an assignment or a test. or preparing for a test, right? Take breaks in between your preparation. Every 25 minutes, you can take, a stretch or 2 minutes break, or every 90 minutes, make sure you have at least a 15 minutes break, right? Just to give yourself, your brain time to rest. Snack on healthy food. So there's some food that some scientists have believed, help you with your memory, like fish, walnuts, and dark chocolate. Of course, I'm not saying eat this if you're allergic, just because you want to remember, isn't it? Green tea also helps, boost the brain function. So some researchers say this helps to boost the brain function. So if you're not allergic, maybe something to consider, but avoid sugary food or energy drinks, and because this will make your energy will rise. After a few minutes, you take it, but when the energy goes down, it goes down big time, right? And you don't want that. Plan your exam day. Don't just get into the exam without planning. So plan and make sure that you have everything you have. And when writing your exams, remember to take deep breaths in and out. Breathe, right? You've done your best so far. Take the pressure off. Do not be pressured about the exam or the test. Focus on what you've reading. Be confident in yourself. If you're religious, pray. If you believe in the universe, meditate. Whatever you believe in, that's the time to meditate about that. Or if you want to think about being in the beach, think about that. Whatever keeps you calm, you want to think about that and keep calm. But what is important is not to be anxious, because that stress can make you forget everything that you've learned, right? So remembering to be calm, but also most importantly, making sure you revise. Now, when you get into that assignment room, just like with the in the exam room, just like with the assignment, it's important you look at all the questions. Don't just start answering. Go through all the questions. Look at the mark allocation. Start with the one with the highest mark allocation so that you can maximize your time. And always start with the easiest question with the highest mark allocation. Sometimes students have just started without reading through the entire questions, only to realize that you focus on question 1, which was 10 marks, and it was so difficult. You use, out of your 3 hours, you use 1.5 hours for one question, just to realize the other 5 questions are so easy and they carry the highest mark. But now you've used most of your time on that first question, and now you do not have enough time, not that you do not know the questions. That is why it's important, read through the entire questions first. Take a pencil, mark those that are easiest, those that you know with the highest mark, start with those. Then use the rest of the time for the difficult question. Okay, that helps. All right. So when reading for your exams, again, we will go through this in detail for the note-taking workshop, but these are the different things that you can use in revision for your exams: comparison charts, mind maps, flow charts, number lists. So you can keep your notes in these forms so that you can keep revising for your exams. But there's also a way to revise multiple choice questions that are different from other questions. Please look out for the multiple choice workshop. So there is a workshop on addressing multiple choice questions. It's different. When you prepare for multiple choice, it's different from an AC, okay? So it's important that you attend that workshop so that you can see. Please thumbs up if you do multiple choice in your module. All right, excellent. So please look out, okay, excellent. That is a really important workshop because we're able to see the best ways to approach multiple choice, which is quite different from essay or short question answers, okay? So we will look at that in detail for the multiple choice workshop. Let me see, that is a really important workshop. Let me just check my calendar to see when we having that workshop. All right, so next week, Thursday, we will be having addressing multiple choice, and we'll look at some barriers to learning and solutions. So Thursday, put this in your diary. We will be looking at addressing multiple choice. On Monday, we'll be unpacking questions, how to unpack questions and best study strategies. Please, you have to look out for the workshop on Wednesday. We'll be looking at grammar and language. So what do we look for when we are editing our work for language and grammar? And on Friday, we'll be looking at note-taking, paraphrasing, and summarizing. So next week, we really will be addressing a lot of important topics. And the week after, we'll look at referencing and plagiarism, editing, proofreading, and critical thinking. So next week, we'll be looking at unpacking a lot of these academic topics that I've been mentioning about. So please, if you can attend next week, you will really benefit a lot from next week's workshops, okay? So on Monday, we'll be looking at unpacking questions in more detail, which is an extension of today's session. Okay, but Wednesday, something new, Thursday, completely new, and Friday, completely new as well. All right, just wanted to draw that to your attention. Okay. So the Pomodoro technique is also very important. It's just remembering to get breaks and rest in between. And remember to always look after yourself, right? Think of yourself as the most important being because you are special, you're unique in every way. So it's important that you think of your well-being, right? It's important that you take good care of yourself, eat healthy, exercise, get enough sleep, pamper yourself. You know, if you have to go for a spa date, do that. Whatever keeps you happy, it's also important because a happy mind will learn better, right? And a full stomach, well fed, and a body that is well exercised will also remember better. So keep thinking about you because you are important, and being happy as well. Your state of mind is also important in however you perform. All right. The day before the exam, just remember you have everything that you need. Get enough sleep, more sleep even the day before the exam. Students usually do the opposite. Before the exam, they don't sleep. You are reducing your chances. You need to sleep more the day before the exam. Make sure you have everything that you need in place. If you're doing it physically, take into consideration the travel time, traffic, you know, everything that may disrupt. If it's online, take into consideration backup data. Make sure your laptop is fully charged. Talking about fully charged, mine needs to be charged. Just using my, just inserting the charger. All right. So remember, it is normal for you to feel a little bit overwhelmed before the exam, but do not get stressed. And when you're in that exam room, make sure the first thing you do in that exam room is to follow the instructions. Instructions are very important. Sometimes they say answer 2 questions only, and you go and answer all the 5 questions. Take time and you do not focus on what is really needed and use the time that you were supposed to use for 2 questions now for 5 questions, right? So read the instruction first. Read through the entire paper, get an idea of what is required. Focus on addressing each question individually. Start with the easiest, with the highest mark allocation. Relax, don't get stressed. And if you're finished, do not just submit. If you're finished, close your paper, give that step back that we always talk about, even if it's 5 to 10 minutes, just put your head down, close your eyes, meditate, and then come back and edit your work, ensuring that you've answered all questions and you've followed all the instructions. Now, let's have a look at the last thing today, which is short answer questions. You will follow the same steps that you do with assignments. So read through the question, plan how you will structure the questions. With short questions, usually are questions like define, you know, list 3 types of this. So you want to check what is required, the tax words, topic words, limit words, rephrase the question, plan on how you structure it, use examples, check the mark allocation, because short questions will also the mark allocation will tell you how much you need to write. If it's 5 marks, if it's 10 marks, if it's 7 marks, and so on. Then you can start responding. Any questions? As I've done with every section, what is the most important thing to you when preparing for exams? What is the one thing that was emphasized to you today? Just a reminder that we're doing the workshops, as well as there's also time for one-on-one consultations, and we really do encourage you to book for these one-on-one consultations, because in these consultations, you'll be able to get that individual help for your specific assignment. So let's say you have an assignment and you do not know how to approach it. Please book to see me. I can help you approach or see if you're approaching the question correctly. If you need help with brainstorming, knowing the best ways to structure, you can book to see me as well. If you need help you've written the first draft, send me the first draft. If you want me to look at your draft, you have to send me the draft, or you send Kagiso the draft when you're doing your booking. Then I'll go through it, and then I will share the comments and the draft with you in the one-on-one consultation. Okay, so I can go through your structure, look at all these academic aspects. I can go through your grammar and, advise on areas that need focus. And then I do not edit your work for you, but I provide advice on how you can improve on your specific draft. Okay, so this is Mr. Kagiso's email that I'm putting in the chat. So if you have any questions and you want to make any bookings, please contact Mr. Kagiso for your questions and booking. And I did put in my email. If you want a copy of the presentation, please send me an email and I will send you, let me just type my email again, and I will send you a copy of presentation. But please just remember, the presentations are not to be cited or shared with any other students. It's just for students who attended and just to serve as a reminder of everything we've learned. So let's see what some of you have learned with the getting enough sleep. Karabo, very important. Having enough rest and preparation, excellent. Getting detailed exam information, excellent, Palesa. Cassandra says enough sleep, eating healthy and planning properly, excellent. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time to attend this session. Today, we looked at best reading practices, which is the SQ4R, surveying, questioning, reading, responding, recording, and reviewing. And we looked at best writing practices, which if you're writing your exam, it's important that you understand the question, you plan, you write, you review, right? We looked at different things about the writing, like, developing a research strategy, planning before you start writing, reviewing, evaluating the information. All of these are important. And we also looked at things to consider as you draw towards the exams.